Hi guys, William Morris here, and today we're going to be taking a look at this contact microphone, the Cortado MKIII. So I've been using piezo style contact mics for a while, sometimes building them into odd little sound design instruments like this one. But they've always been quite cheap ones that were sort of expendable and I could kind of leave them permanently attached to the instrument. The problem with these cheap ones though is that they've been quite noisy, and I've always found the frequency response is pretty limited and can be sort of quite harsh and nasty. So I thought it time to get myself a proper contact microphone that I could use for sound design and some more interesting sort of miking options. So I asked around a bit, and the Cortado sort of came recommended by a few people. So I reached out to the guys at Zeppelin Design Labs, and they were kind enough to send me one over to sort of test out and put through its paces. So I'll quickly run through the features first, and then we'll jump into some recording examples. So here is the mic itself, and this is attached to the included preamp, which has a few controls, which we'll get into shortly. Just inside the box, we have some rubber feet for the preamp unit if you want to add those on. There's some additional mounting putty which just goes on the underside of the sensor there, so you can stick it to stuff. And you also get a nice sticker and a little thank you booklet. So we'll move those out of the way for now and just focus on the mic. So the sensor itself is built into this little metal tin, which Zeppelin Labs describe as nearly indestructible. And in fact, they have a video on their website of it being run over by a car. Now, I'm not quite brave enough to try that, but I'd say it definitely feels really well built. And that goes for the preamp unit as well. It's in a nice kind of, I believe that's maybe steel sort of chassis, really solid. Feels like you could probably step on it and it'd still be okay. The tin, yeah, is really strong as well. There's lots of nice strain relief that they've added to all sort of points of the preamp as well. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that it would stand up some pretty sort of serious stresses and strains. Even the cabling itself is pretty tough, and you get 1.8 meters of it between the sensor and the preamp, and then you can add an XLR cable to extend it to your recorder. And it just takes standard 48 volt phantom power. The guys at Zeppelin Labs have also told me that the sensor can be submerged in water, so we'll definitely be testing that out later on in the video. Now, one of the main reasons I wanted to go for the Cortado in particular is that it has an extended frequency response. So it actually goes from 23 Hertz all the way up to 40 kilohertz. So this is a big plus for anyone doing sound design and ultrasonic recording, as once you sort of pitch shift all that down, so all that recording above 20 kilohertz will become audible. And it really does help when pitch shifting stuff down, because you can kind of retain some of the upper frequencies, and it doesn't just turn everything to kind of bass and mud, which is really great. So if we take a look at the included preamp unit, it comes with these dip switches on the back, which allow a 10 dB pad, which has come in really handy for some of the much louder sounds. And then there's a bass boost, which is basically a high pass filter. So this is going to roll off stuff from below 150 Hertz. And from my experience before, contact mics can get quite muddy sometimes in the sort of bass region. So it's really nice to have that option on the preamp itself. All right, so that's the mic. And now we'll jump into some recording examples. So I can show you how this thing sounds on a range of different sources, both natural and some process stuff. Everything I've done is recorded at 192 kilohertz, and that's either on the RME UFX Plus, or for the mobile stuff, I'm using the Zoom F3. So now it's probably actually a good time to take a look at the recording in Isotope RX. And as you can see, we are going all the way up to the promised 40 kilohertz. There's still some information beyond that, but it's more noise than usable signal at that point. Alright, so hopefully that gives you guys some idea of how this mic sounds and its versatility. I have to say I'm really impressed with this thing. It's a million miles from any of the contact mics I've used before and has opened up some new sounds on instruments that I've had for a long time as well. It's very particular with placement, even sort of about half a centimetre left or right makes a big difference to the sound. And from what I've used it on so far, the frequency response feels really balanced and doesn't have any of that harshness I've kind of experienced with some other of the cheaper contact mics. It maybe has a sort of slight push in the mids, low mids kind of area, but I'd say overall, of all the contact mics I've tried before, this has easily been the sort of most neutral in its frequency response, which is nice. And it's also been way quieter, which is nice for the more delicate sounds. I think at around maybe 60 dB plus of added gain, we start to get a little bit noisy, but that's kind of pushing it quite hard with some very quiet sounds. I found the included mounting putty has actually been working really well. You can obviously use a clamp as well, but sometimes a clamp just isn't practical. So it's really nice to have the putty as an option. And this one I've actually had on for a few months. You get 2 tabs included. This is still my first tab and it's still going strong, still sticking to stuff really well. So yeah, I'm pretty kind of pleased with that. I think in terms of any negatives, I don't really have much, to be honest, but I'd say if I was being picky, I'd maybe say that the cable, although it's very tough, is a little bit prone to handling noise. I found some softer cabling and a little less noisy on things like lavalier mics and contacts mics. But obviously the tougher cable does make sense here because they're kind of positioning it as a really sort of tough and durable contact mic, so it is nice to have that. And as long as you're careful with it and kind of use a bit of strain relief and cable management, it's really not an issue. Something else to note is also the size of the sensor. So I'd say this is maybe a little bit chunkier than a few other contact mics that you can get. So in certain situations, like trying to mic up under the bridge of this violin, it's maybe not going to fit in every situation. And this is obviously the trade-off of having this kind of really tough enclosure. I think one other thing that would have been maybe nice to have also is just a detachable cable here going to the preamp unit, and that would have just obviously allowed a bit more extension in a few use cases. These are pretty minor points though, and overall I definitely recommend this mic to anyone who needs a sturdy, well-balanced contact mic that can cover some of that ultrasonic range as well. I think they've done a great job kind of putting this together in a really kind of convincing package. Alright guys, so I hope you've enjoyed this review. Any questions, as always, let me know in the comments, but if not, I'll see you again on the next one.